Alright, today I'm just going to be giving you guys some real quick tips and tricks on making your own low poly game characters. So over the past few months, I've been working on a game called Deducto 2, wishlist on Steam, and unfortunately we're in a stage of development right now where a lot of the mistakes I made early on are kind of stuck in the game now, and there's not a lot I could really do to fix a lot of it, so hopefully you guys will be able to watch this though and learn from some of the mistakes I made and be able to make some really cool shit. Also, not going to be doing step-by-step instructions. I don't know what sort of weird characters you guys are making. As long as you follow these instructions, you should be fine. Anyways, every second this intro drags on, more and more you guys are clicking out, so let's just hop right in. This one's going to be really easy. If you're just starting your mesh out, you're not going to see a lot of change when you click this button, but once you put a lot of effort into this, you're going to be really happy you know about it. Alright, super simple. All you need to do is, while in the edit mode of your model, go to Mesh, Normals, and click Reset Vectors. So what this does is it recalculates the vectors of your model, so if there's any weird shading things that start happening, which trust me there will be, it's going to automatically fix it for you. So for example, when I was working on these models here, there was this weird issue near the crotch where the faces were just being shaded really weird. I assumed it was the topology was bad, so I spent a bunch of time trying to smooth it out. If I knew about this reset vectors button, I would have saved myself a ton of time. I can't really explain the logic behind how the verts get weird like this. Doesn't matter, as long as you click the button, it fixes it, so that's what counts. Alright, so our next tip is going to be writing off that last one. The downside of low poly modeling is sometimes when you're using flat shading, which I'm sure most of you guys will be, your models could look pretty sharp, jagged, looks like you can cut your fingers on them, but it doesn't have to be that way. There's actually this nifty little setting right next to where that last one is. In edit mode, go to Mesh, Normals, and hit Smooth Vectors. Any vertices that you have selected will be smoothed out by whatever percent you have down here. The higher you set it, the closer it's going to be to normal smooth shading, and the lower you set it, the closer it's going to be to normal flat shading. In Deducto 2, what we did is we actually smoothed the skin out of our models by about 0.5, 0.4, something like that. I decided to have the fabric be about 0.2-ish, leather is like 0.1, and then the metal is 0. I'm probably going to change the amounts by the time the game comes out, but just give you a ballpark estimate. That's kind of what we're doing for our game. The last few were pretty small, but you gotta trust me on this one. This one's important. Pay attention to the topology of your model, especially if you're going to rig it. Don't worry about having perfect topology all over your model. Not gonna happen. As long as you have it pretty good in spots that matter, you're fine. So really, there's only 3 spots that matter a lot. That's gonna be the shoulders, the knees, and the elbows. If you get those good, your model's going to rig perfectly fine. Should, hopefully. So I'm trying to keep this video kind of short, so I'm not going to be going into the topology on all these and how to do it perfectly, but I'll show you how we did it in Deducto 2. You can see the knees here. The knees aren't that good. I'm sure you could do it better, so I wouldn't copy me if I was you. But you can see the elbows here. The elbows work great, so feel free to copy me on the elbows. You can see the topology here. So unfortunately, the shoulders are what I messed up in Deducto 2. It's a little tricky to explain topology, but essentially what I did is I had big holes where the shoulders were. I extruded outwards to create the arms, so I kind of have these big tube-like arms, if you pay attention to the topology here. Unfortunately, the issue with these big tube arms is whenever the character puts their arms down by their side, you can kind of see some of the mesh issues that start popping up. So for most cases, I would recommend going for an A pose in your model, as opposed to a T pose. It depends on your character. So if your character is going to be doing a bunch of crazy animations where their arms are up in the air doing crazy stuff, you might want to go for a T pose, but if they're going to be standing with their arms by their side a lot of the time, going for an A pose is going to be the better approach. I'm not going to spend more time going into the topology on how to do this, but you can look at these reference photos here to kind of see the best approach, in my opinion, on how to do shoulders. The best way I'd think about it is you can kind of think about the rings around the neck as being kind of like tubes, and you want those tubes to come down and then kind of come over the shoulders more or less. Taking that approach would make it so that whenever they lower their arms, they're not going to be too weird with the topology. You might have a little bit more issues once you start raising the arms up pretty high, but for most cases, I think this is going to be what will give you the best results. All right, I know that last tip was pretty long and boring, but this next one's going to be a little bit more fun. All you got to do is pay attention to the silhouette of your model. A little trap I fell into with my models is paying too much attention to little tiny details that no one would ever even notice on the finished product. For the most part, if you just look at the silhouette outline of your character, if it looks good, then you're fine. You don't need to worry about little tiny things. In Deducto 2, I was way freaked out about the nose and the lips of the character, and by the end, I got some topology for the face, and it didn't even look good. You know, it was somewhere you couldn't even notice it, really. So we actually opted to go, mostly for the art style of the first game, so they can't match, but we decided not to have any face or lips, really. So a good way to test this out is to actually go to viewport shading, click the arrow, and go to flat. I like to set my material to be black, so I can kind of look at just the silhouette of this character and see what stands out. If you're making a construction worker, you might want to make sure that you got some tools visible on the belt. Or if you're making a guy that has a big sword, you want to make sure that looks like a sword and not like a big frickin',
Tip number 5.
Start simple. It's always easier to increase the poly count of your model as opposed to decreasing it. So the best thing you can do is just start bare bones simple, go for like a square body, doesn't matter. Just worry about having good topology on the shoulders, elbows, and knees. Whenever you're ready, what you could do is you can add a modifier called a subdivision modifier. And what this will do is this will double your poly count. After you add that, then it's much easier to go in, kind of smooth out, make everything look a little bit more organic. But the best thing to do, in my opinion, is to just get that good topology to make sure this thing's going to rig well, and then go in and try to make it look a little bit more natural after applying a subdivision modifier. And that's pretty much it. If you liked the video, please leave a like. If you didn't like the video, I don't know why I said that. Don't leave a like, even if you don't like it. Subscribe if you have things you want me to talk about. I've got more wisdom for you. Leave some recommendations in the comments. I feel like a dumbass saying all this. Just like the video and get out of here.